I uncovered the president's alien conspiracy and got abducted. Now they want me to join their secret world government or face extinction. What do I do? Part 1. The Accidental Discovery. My name is Alex Chen, and until 3 months ago, I was just another struggling journalist fresh out of college, desperately trying to make a name for myself in Washington, D.C. I never imagined I'd stumble upon the biggest story in human history, one that would shake the very foundations of our understanding of life, politics, and our place in the universe. It all started on a muggy Tuesday evening in July. I was working late at the office of the Capital Chronicle, a small but respectable online news outlet. As the newest and least experienced member of the team, I was stuck with the mind-numbing task of sorting through the mountains of tips and leads poured into our website daily. Most were dead ends, conspiracy theories, or thinly veiled attempts at free publicity. But then I saw it, a grainy video clip attached to an anonymous email. The subject line read, "POTUS meeting with non-human entities. This is not a drill." I almost deleted it outright. After all, claims of aliens and government conspiracies were a dime a dozen in this line of work. But something made me hesitate. Maybe it was the late hour or the 3 cups of coffee I'd downed to stay awake. Whatever the reason, I decided to take a look. The video was short, barely 30 seconds long, and the quality was terrible. It showed a dimly lit room that looked like it could be in the White House. Several figures were huddled around a table, their features indistinct in the low light. But as I squinted at the screen, my heart nearly stopped. One of the figures was unmistakably President Harriet Blackwell. First female president of the United States, and a woman I'd seen countless times on TV and in newspapers. But the beings seated across from her, they were like nothing I'd ever seen before. Tall, slender, with elongated heads and large, almond-shaped eyes that seemed to glow faintly in the dark room. They moved with an otherworldly grace as they gestured at what appeared to be a holographic display hovering above the table. I played the video again and again, my mind racing. This had to be some kind of hoax, right? Cleverly edited fake designed to go viral and embarrass the administration. The more I studied it, the more convinced I became that what I was seeing was real. The email came with a cryptic message. The truth is out there, but time is running out. They plan to go public on their own terms. We can't let that happen. Dig deeper. Stargazer. I sat back in my chair, my head spinning. This was real, and that was still a big if. It would be the story of the century. No, the millennium. But I knew I couldn't just publish this video and call it a day. I needed more evidence, more context. I needed to understand what was really going on. Little did I know, my decision to investigate further would plunge me into a world of danger, secrecy, and earth-shattering revelations. It would challenge everything I thought I knew about our world, and force me to confront questions I never imagined asking. This is the story of how I, Alex Chen, a nobody journalist with more ambition than sense, exposed the greatest conspiracy in human history and changed the course of our planet's future forever. Part 2. Down the rabbit hole. The next few days were a blur of sleepless nights and caffeinated days as I dove headfirst into my investigation. I knew I couldn't trust anyone at the office with this, not yet. The stakes were too high, and I had no idea how deep this conspiracy might go. My first step was to try and verify the authenticity of the video. I reached out to contacts in the visual effects industry, carefully omitting any specific details about what the video contained. Their consensus? While they couldn't rule out an extremely sophisticated fake, footage showed no obvious signs of manipulation. Next, I began digging into President Blackwell's recent activities, pored over public schedules, press releases, social media posts, looking for any inconsistencies or unexplained absences. First glance, everything seemed normal. But as I dug deeper, a pattern began to emerge. Over the past year, there had been a noticeable increase in the number of private meetings on the president's schedule. These closed-door sessions, often lasting several hours, were consistently followed by sudden policy shifts or unexpected announcements. The most striking example came 3 months ago when Blackwell abruptly reversed her stance on a controversial deep space mining initiative. She had long opposed the project on environmental grounds, but seemingly overnight, she became its most vocal champion. The change had baffled political analysts at the time, but in light of what I'd seen in that video, took on a sinister new significance. As I connected the dots, my apartment began to resemble the lair of a conspiracy theorist. Walls covered in timelines, photos, and sticky notes. Stacks of books on ufology and extraterrestrial theories cluttered every surface. I barely slept, surviving on a diet of coffee and takeout as I fell deeper and deeper down the rabbit hole. But I knew that if I was going to break this story, I needed more than just circumstantial evidence and theories. I needed hard proof, and ideally, a source inside the administration willing to go on record. That's when I remembered an old college friend, Samantha Torres. She had landed a job as a junior staffer in the White House shortly after graduation. We hadn't spoken in months, but I knew she was my best shot at getting closer to the truth. I reached out to Sam, suggesting we meet for coffee, catch up. When we met at a small cafe a few blocks from the White House, I could tell immediately that something was off. Sam looked exhausted, with dark circles under her eyes, and a nervous energy that set me on edge. After some small talk, I carefully steered the conversation towards her work, the White House. "How's life in the corridors of power?" I asked, trying to keep my tone light and casual. Sam's eyes darted around the cafe before she leaned in close. "Alex," she whispered, her voice trembling slightly, "I can't talk about it. Something's happening. Something big. And it's scaring the hell out of me." My heart raced as I realized I was on the right track. "Sam," I said softly, "whatever it is, you can trust me. If there's something going on that people need to know about, I can help get the truth out." She shook her head vehemently. "You don't understand. If they find out I've said anything." She trailed off, her eyes wide with fear. I decided to take a risk. Pulling out my phone, I showed her a still frame from the video, careful not to let anyone else in the cafe see. "Is this what you're afraid of, Sam?" Color drained from her face as she stared at the image. "Oh God," she whispered. "You know." Over the next hour, in hushed tones and fragmented sentences, Sam painted a picture more terrifying and incredible than I could have imagined. According to her, the aliens, beings from a star system she didn't know, had made contact with world governments nearly a decade ago. Their technology was centuries beyond our own, and they offered to share it in exchange for certain considerations. President Blackwell, along with leaders from other major world powers, had been negotiating with these entities in secret. The aliens promised solutions to climate change, clean energy, and even the cure for cancer. But Sam was convinced their true motives were far from benevolent. "They're planning something, Alex," she said, voice barely audible. "Something that's going to change everything. And it's happening soon." As we parted ways, Sam slipped me a small USB drive. "This is everything I've been able to gather," she said. "Names, dates, locations. Be careful, Alex. These people, both human and not, they'll do anything to keep this quiet." I hurried home, my mind reeling from everything I'd learned. As I plugged in the USB drive, I knew there was no turning back. I was in possession of explosive evidence of the greatest conspiracy in human history. Now I just had to figure out how to break the story without getting myself, or Sam, killed in the process. Part 3. The Alien Agenda Unveiled. Contents of Sam's USB drive were like a roadmap to the conspiracy. It contained encrypted communications, redacted government memos, and most shockingly, detailed plans for what the aliens called integration. According to these documents, the extraterrestrial beings, who referred to themselves as the collective, had a long-term strategy for Earth. They weren't interested in a hostile takeover or the subjugation of humanity. Instead, they proposed a gradual merger of our two species, both technologically and biologically. The collective argued that this integration was necessary to save both our civilization. Their own planet was dying, ravaged by the same kind of environmental destruction that threatened Earth. By combining our strengths, humanity's creativity and adaptability with their advanced technology, they believed we could create a new, hybrid civilization capable of surviving the challenges that lay ahead. Sounded almost noble on the surface. But as I dug deeper into the files, I uncovered a darker truth. The integration process would fundamentally alter human biology, rewriting our very DNA to make us more compatible with the collective. Those who couldn't or wouldn't adapt would be left behind, creating a two-tiered society of enhanced humans and legacy humans. Moreover, the aliens' timeline for this process was shockingly short. According to a heavily redacted memo, first phase of public disclosure was set to begin in just 3 weeks. The president was scheduled to make a world-changing announcement, revealing the existence of extraterrestrial life and framing the coming changes as a new era of cosmic cooperation. I felt sick to my stomach as I realized the full implications of what I'd discovered. This wasn't just about aliens or government secret. It was about the very future of humanity itself. But even as I grappled with the enormity of the situation, a part of me, the journalist I'd trained to be, knew I had the story of a lifetime in my hands. I just needed to figure out how to break it in a way that people would believe. I spent the next week corroborating as much of the information as I could without raising suspicions. I cross-referenced dates and locations with public records, analyzed speech patterns in the president's recent addresses for signs of alien influence, and even managed to track down a retired government scientist who hinted at non-terrestrial technology being developed in secret labs. As the pieces fell into place, I became more and more convinced that I had to act fast. If I waited until the official announcement, it might be too late. The collective's narrative would be established, and any attempts to reveal the darker aspects of their plan would be dismissed as fear-mongering, but I also knew that publishing everything I had without ironclad proof would be journalistic suicide. I needed something undeniable, something that would force people to take my claims seriously. That's when I remembered a crucial detail from Sam's files: a list of coordinates for suspected alien-human meeting sites. One of them was an abandoned military base just a few hours' drive from DC. And according to the schedule I'd pieced together, there was supposed to be a high-level meeting there in 2 days' time. It was a huge risk, but I knew it might be my only chance to get the smoking gun evidence I needed. I packed my camera, a voice recorder, and every piece of surveillance equipment I could get my hands on. As I prepared to set out on what might be the most important and dangerous assignment of my life, I couldn't shake the feeling that the fate of humanity might rest on what I discovered in that remote location. Little did I know, my actions had not gone unnoticed. Even as I made my plans, shadowy forces were moving to stop me. The next 48 hours would push me to my limits and force me to confront dangers beyond anything I'd ever imagined. Part 4. Into the Lion's Den. The drive to the coordinates felt like a journey into another world. As I left the bustling streets of DC behind, the landscape gradually transformed into a desolate expanse of scrubland and withered trees. Further I went, the more isolated I felt, and the enormity of what I was attempting began to weigh heavily on me. I arrived at the perimeter of the abandoned base just as the sun was setting, casting long shadows across the cracked concrete and rusted fences. From a distance, the place looked completely deserted, frozen in time since its decommissioning decades ago. But as I observed through my binoculars, I noticed subtle signs of recent activity: fresh tire tracks in the dust, faint glow from one of the hangar buildings that shouldn't have had power. My heart pounded as I realized this was really happening. Somewhere beyond those fences, humans and aliens were meeting to discuss the future of our species. And I was the only one in a position to expose it. Using the cover of darkness, I managed to find a weak spot in the perimeter fence and slip inside the base. Every step felt like it could be my last, my senses hyper-alert for any sign of discovery. I made my way towards the hangar with the telltale glow, my camera ready to capture whatever I might find. As I crept closer, I began to hear voices, some human, others decidedly not. The alien speech was like nothing I'd ever heard before, a series of clicks, whistles, and modulated tones that sent shivers down my spine. I positioned myself near a partially open side door and risked a glance inside. What I saw nearly made me gasp out loud. The interior of the hangar had been transformed into a high-tech command center. Holographic displays flickered in the air, showing what looked like maps of major cities and complex biological diagrams. But it was the beings gathered around these displays that truly took my breath away. There were at least a dozen of them. Tall, willowy figures with skin that seemed to shimmer with an inner light. Their large, expressive eyes swept the room as they gestured with elongated fingers, communicating in that eerie musical language. And there, in the midst of these otherworldly beings, stood President Harriet Blackwell herself. She looked pale and drawn, but her voice was steady as she addressed the aliens in what sounded like their own language. I fumbled with my camera, my hands shaking as I tried to capture this incredible scene. But in my nervousness, I made a critical mistake. The flash was still on. A burst of light illuminated the hangar for a split second, and every head, human and alien, turned in my direction. For a moment, time seemed to stand still. Then chaos erupted. Alarms blared as figures rushed towards my position. I turned and ran, my heart feeling like it might burst from my chest. I could hear shouts behind me, orders being barked in English and that strange alien language. I sprinted across the base, vaulting over debris and squeezing through gaps in buildings. My lungs burned and my legs ached, but pure adrenaline kept me going. Had to get out. Had to survive long enough to share what I'd seen. Just as I thought I might make it, a brilliant light flooded the area, brighter than day. I looked up to see a craft hovering above, unlike any aircraft I'd ever seen. Moved with impossible grace, defying the laws of physics as I understood them. A beam of energy lanced out from the craft, and the ground in front of me exploded. I was thrown backward, my head spinning as I struggled to regain my feet. As my vision cleared, I found myself surrounded. Humans in dark suits leveled weapons at me, while the alien beings stood back, their large eyes studying me, with an unsettling intensity. President Blackwell stepped forward, her face a mask of fury and fear. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" he hissed. I held up my camera defiantly. "I've exposed the truth," I said, trying to keep my voice from shaking. "The world deserves to know what's really going on." One of the aliens made a series of rapid clicks and whistles. Blackwell's expression shifted to one of resignation. "It's too late," he said softly. "Plan is already in motion. All you've done is complicate." As the aliens conferred among themselves, I realized with a sinking feeling that I might have bitten off more than I could chew. I had come seeking the truth, but now that I had found it, I wasn't sure if I or the world was ready for the consequence. Part 5. Truth Unleashed. I spent the next 72 hours in a windowless room, questioned relentlessly by a rotating cast of government agents and scientists. They wanted to know how I had discovered their secret, who else was involved, and most importantly, what I planned to do with the information. I held firm, refusing to reveal my sources or hand over the evidence I'd gathered. But as the hours dragged on, I began to wonder if I'd ever see the outside world again. Just when I thought I couldn't take any more, everything changed. The door to my makeshift cell burst open, and in walked President Blackwell herself, flanked by two of the alien beings. "Mr. Chen," President Blackwell said, her voice tight with barely contained emotion, "seems we've reached an impasse. The collective has made a decision, and I'm afraid you've forced our hand." I straightened up, trying to project confidence I didn't feel. "What does that mean? Are you going to kill me?" One of the aliens stepped forward, its large eyes blinking slowly as it regarded me. When it spoke, the words seemed to form directly in my mind, bypassing my ears entirely. "Death would be inefficient," the alien communicated. "You possess knowledge, you will be given a choice." Blackwell nodded, her expression grim. "Alex, I know you think you're doing the right thing, but you have to understand the bigger picture. The collective isn't our enemy, they're our only hope for survival. By erasing what makes us human?" Shot back. "By turning us into them?" "By saving us from ourselves," Blackwell countered. "Climate change, resource depletion, the threat of nuclear war, we're on a path to destruction. The collective is offering us a way out." The alien's voice echoed in my mind again. "Your species stands at a crossroads, integration or extinction. These are the only paths forward." I felt a chill run down my spine. "And what's my choice?" Blackwell stepped closer, her voice dropping to almost a whisper. "Join us, Alex. Be part of shaping this new future. Your skills, your determination, we need people like you to help guide humanity through this transition." "And if I refuse?" The alien's mental voice was cold and matter-of-fact. "Then you will be contained until the integration is complete. Your memories will be adjusted to remove knowledge of our existence." I stared at them, my mind reeling. You're asking me to betray my species, to help you, what? Take over our bodies? To save your species, Blackwell insisted. To give humanity a future among the stars. For a moment I was tempted. The idea of being part of something so monumental, so world-changing, was intoxicating. But then I thought of Sam, of the fear in her eyes when she gave me that USB drive. I thought of the billions of people going about their lives, blissfully unaware that their very existence was about to be fundamentally altered without their consent. No, I said firmly. I won't help you deceive the world. People deserve to know the truth, to make their own choice. Blackwell's face fell. I'm sorry you feel that way, Alex. I truly am. The alien stepped forward, its hand reaching towards my forehead. Then we will proceed with memory alteration. In that moment, fueled by desperation and adrenaline, I made a split-second decision. I lunged forward, shoving past Blackwell and the alien. My fingers found the device I'd managed to keep hidden throughout my captivity. A small, experimental quantum transmitter I'd borrowed from a tech startup I'd once interviewed. Before anyone could stop me, I activated the device. A burst of data, everything I'd discovered, every piece of evidence I'd gathered, was instantly transmitted to secure servers around the world. Servers programmed to release the information to every major news outlet if I didn't enter a kill code every 24 hours. Alarms blared as I was tackled to the ground. The last thing I saw before losing consciousness was the look of utter shock on President Blackwell's face. Part 6. A world forever changed. I awoke to the sound of chaos. My head pounding, I found myself in a hospital bed, surrounded by beeping machines and frantic voices. TV mounted on the wall was tuned to a news channel, and what I saw made my heart race. The headlines scrolled across the bottom of the screen. Alien contact confirmed. World leaders admit to decade-long conspiracy. Footage of my confrontation with Blackwell and the alien played on a loop, interspersed with shaky cell phone videos of strange craft in the skies over major cities. Experts debated the implications, religious leaders called for calm, and social media exploded with a mix of panic, excitement, and disbelief. A nurse noticed I was awake and quickly called for a doctor. Within minutes, I was surrounded by a team of medical professionals and what looked like government agents. Mr. Chen, one of the agents said, his voice tense, I hope you realize the magnitude of what you've done. I tried to sit up, wincing at the pain in my head. I did what I had to do. The world deserved to know the truth. The agent's expression was a mix of frustration and grudging respect. Well, the truth's out there now. The question is, what happens next? Over the next few days, as I recovered in the hospital under heavy guard, I watched as the world grappled with the revelation that we were not alone in the universe, and that our leaders had been negotiating with aliens in secret for years. President Blackwell addressed the nation, confirming the existence of the collective and laying out the reasons for the secrecy. She spoke of the existential threats facing humanity and presented the integration as our best hope for survival. But the response was far from unanimous acceptance. Protests erupted in cities around the world. Some embraced the idea of a hybrid future, seeing it as the next step in human evolution. Others decried it as the end of humanity, as we knew it. Religious leaders were split, some declaring the aliens demons, while others saw them as divine messengers. Scientists clamored for access to alien technology, while military leaders warned of the potential threats posed by a vastly superior civilization. Through it all, I found myself thrust into the spotlight as the whistleblower who had exposed the greatest secret in human history. I was alternately hailed as a hero and denounced as a traitor who had destroyed humanity's chance at a controlled, gradual disclosure. Weeks turned into months, and the debate raged on. Collective, now operating openly, established embassies in major cities. They began sharing some of their technology, demonstrating solutions to energy crises and environmental degradation that seemed like magic to human eyes. Questions remained. How much of our humanity would we have to give up to embrace this cosmic future? Were we walking willingly into our own extinction, or stepping into a new era of unprecedented growth and exploration? As for me, I continued to investigate, to ask the hard questions that others shied away from. I had become a voice for transparency in this new world order, determined to ensure that humanity's choices were made with full knowledge and consent. 1 year to the day after my fateful discovery, I stood on a stage before a global audience, preparing to moderate the first public debate between human leaders and representatives of the collective. As I looked out at the sea of faces, human and alien alike, I realized that this was only the beginning of our journey. The truth was out there, exposed for all to see. Now, it was up to all of us to decide what to do with it. Whatever the future held, one thing was certain. The world would never be the same again. Epilogue. The true integration. 5 years after my whistleblowing changed the world, I found myself aboard Harmony Station, allegedly humanity's crowning achievement of cooperation with the collective. As Earth's ambassador, I was preparing for yet another round of negotiation. Something felt off. It had for a while now. The integration wasn't going as smoothly as the public broadcast suggested. Reports of incompatibility were rising. People who underwent the process were changing in ways that went beyond the promised enhancement. Their personalities shifted, memories became hazy, and their loyalty seemed to lie more with the collective than their human origins. I'd been digging, quietly investigating these cases, and what I found chilled me to the bone. Late one night, I managed to hack into the station's secure databases. What I saw made my blood run cold. The integration wasn't about saving humanity or elevating us to the stars. It was a sophisticated form of invasion. Complete takeover of human bodies and minds, executed so gradually that we wouldn't realize until it was too late. The collective wasn't dying. They were parasites, moving from world to world, assimilating species after species. And we were next. As I stared at the damning evidence on my screen, the door to my quarters slid open. President Blackwell stood there, but her eyes, they weren't human anymore. "Oh, Alex," she said, her voice a mix of pity and alien coldness. "You just couldn't leave well enough alone, could you?" I reached for the quantum transmitter, hoping to send one last warning to Earth. But as Blackwell advanced, her form shifting into something inhuman, I realized with horror that it was too late. Not just for me, for all of humanity. The last thing I saw before darkness took me was Earth through the viewport. Beautiful and oblivious to the fact that its days as a human world were numbered. And the most terrifying part? Deep in my mind, in a voice that was both mine and not mine, I heard a thought. Perhaps integration isn't so bad after all. Perhaps resistance really is futile. I tried to scream, but no sound came out. The integration had begun.